Hey everyone, Warrax here. I'm going to take these off. So we did a beginner's guide for patch 9.0. Today we're going to do an intermediate's guide for patch 9.1 for Brewmaster Monk. Now this guide won't touch on the baseline abilities as much as the first video did, the beginner's guide, because at this point I'm going to assume that you understand how every ability works and kind of how the kit fits and flows within each other. What we're going to do in this video is actually talk about some more advanced concepts, some updates to maybe some talents that you can maybe choose, updates to legendaries, covenants, soulbinds, and other items that are kind of now outdated in the beginner's guide. The foundation of the spec hasn't changed, so a good chunk of that video is still valid and useful for brand new players. If you're just coming to the spec in 9.1, you can still look at the beginner's guide video and get a good baseline of understanding of how the spec works and operates, rotation, basic talent choices. All of that stuff hasn't really changed. And so you can still use that as a kickoff guide and then use this as a more in-depth guide for yourself. Now, as always, before we get into the meat of the video, as always with YouTube videos, guys, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel and the video as well. It truly helps me grow this channel, and I appreciate you very much for doing so. The almost 150 of you that have already subscribed, shout outs to all of you for subscribing to the channel. I appreciate it every day that you remain subscribed to my channel here. Fun fact, only 3% of you, roughly 3% of you that watch my videos actually subscribe to the channel, so subbing makes a world of difference for me at no cost to you. So hit that subscribe button, hit the bell if you're interested in seeing more of my video guides that I'll be doing for the Monk spec for patch 9.1. Now let's get into the meat of the video and let's talk about Brewmaster talents. So in the beginning, this was the talent build that I told you should take. And for the most part, that hasn't changed. This build is still very valid. It does well defensively, it does well offensively. However, there is one row that I want to talk about, and that is the level 40 row. So Bob and Weave is the talent that I advised in the beginner's guide. I still think it's a pretty decent talent if you're in high damage, tank buster style bosses. Sire Denathrius and Castle Nathria, for example, just absolutely crushed Brewmaster tanks. So having Bob and Weave just was, generally speaking, the best choice because it allowed you to stagger out that effectively. I think it was like 21% extra stagger over the course of the fight. Now, there is some variance to this row. So as you can see, I have Healing Elixir talented in. Generally speaking, I choose Healing Elixir for Mythic Plus purposes. It's pretty useless in raid because you're going to have anywhere from, 3 to 6 healers, depending on how many you have in your raid comp, that are going to be basically healing non-stop throughout a fight. So Healing Elixir doesn't really find any value in a raid situation. However, in a Mythic Plus situation, it finds a lot of value because, you know, getting you that 15% of your maximum health on a 30-second recharge with 2 charges is a good way to have you get a third sustain option between Expel Harm, Gift of the Ox Orbs, and now Healing Elixir. Now for me as a Mythic Plus player only, this is generally the one I keep in my arsenal because I'm generally pugging my healer, and so I'm basically playing the pug player RNG at that point to see if I get a good healer or a not so great healer in my Mythic Plus pug groups. So Dampen Harm just gives you, or excuse me, Healing Elixir just gives you a third, not super great, it's not Death Strike, nothing really is though, but it does give you a third way to help you sort of sustain your health pool and give you a little bit of stability and control over your own HP pool when you have that pug Mythic healer tank, or a healer that's, or a pug healer, or working with a healer that's not that experienced. Dampen Harm is generally going to be seen by most experienced Brewmaster monks as the best talent on this row, getting you a 2-minute cooldown just to go with Fortifying Brew and somewhat Angry Dave, Invoke Najal, along with Zen Meditation. It gives you just another cooldown in your arsenal. This will, depending on the size of the ability, will reduce the damage you take by 20 to 50% for 10 seconds. So this is really good in raid, exceptional in raid, and pretty good in Mythic Plus as well, because you can time this with big damage events when you know you're going to be taking a big shot. So in Mythic Plus, for example, the Iron Spikes in Grand Mistress Berillia and Sanguine Depths, for example, would be a good way to use Dampen Harm on one of those so that you reduce a lot of the hits on that, get a DR on that, and hopefully you don't take as much of your health pool or stagger bar as a result. So I definitely think you can run Bob and Weave. I think that's still fine if that's what you're comfortable with. If you struggle with having a ton of keybinds, As you can see, I've got a bunch going on my monk here. I think I'm up to like 30 something on this character, and there's still a few things yet to keybind. But dampen, harm, and a healing elixir, I'm definitely going to encourage you to run both. Like I said, I run healing elixir because I just feel comfortable with it in Mythic Plus. I definitely think that you should look into both of these talents depending on the content that you do. If you're a raider, don't touch healing elixir. Look into bob and weave, dampen harm, figure out which one's going to be good for you. If you're a Mythic Pluser, you can pick any one of these, and I think you're going to be fine. Now let's move on to Legendaries. So in the first video, the beginner's guide, I basically told you to go chase only one Legendary, and that was Stormstout's Last Keg, where Keg Smash deals additional damage, 1 additional charge. However, for pure single target situations, such as, from what I understand, the Terra Grew boss and Sanctum of Domination, Charred Passions is another good one. This comes out of Cold Heart Instertitia from Torghast, so very easy to get just on the Torghast rotation. And basically here you get just big single targets. So when you Breath of Fire ignite, your Breath of Fire ignites your right leg in flame, causing your blackout kick and spinning crank kick to deal 100% additional damage as fire damage and refresh the duration of Breath of Fire on your target. So what this does is this actually allows you to deal more single target damage, obviously, but it also will work very well in maintaining the Breath of Fire debuff, which reduces damage taken by 5%. So effectively you should have around 100% uptime on this buff. So overall, this is a great single target only option. Anything that has AoE fights or Mythic Plus capacity, Stormstout's Last Keg is by far the superior Legendary. So you have 1 or 2 that you can run with here, depending on single target, multi-target situations. So you can kind of pick and choose which one works best. Because of the domination sockets, we're going to talk where to craft these. The current slots that you have in your Legendaries, so shoulder, waist, or boots, are not going to be ideal slots anymore. Since you cannot socket domination gems into your Legendaries at this time, you'll need to switch up where your Legendaries are in order to maximize your domination socket choices. So for Stormstouts, you want to go, instead of shoulder and hands, which are both sockets for leather wearers, you want to go with the waist, so you want to get a new belt. Go for that. I'll be doing that soon. And then Charred Passions, you want it on your cloak slot now. So be kind to your tailor and leatherworker friends and hit them up when they get a chance to grind out these rank 5 and 6s. I would not craft these until you get enough for rank 5 or rank 6. I would probably just hold out until rank 6 because you can get a ton of soul ash. You'll need like 5,500 plus soul ash, which you can get in 3 or 4 weeks of Torghast, or you might have already. And then the soul cinders, you just continue to grind up as you move forward. I don't remember exactly how many it's going to be for rank 6. Recrafting these legendaries definitely is annoying. And are we going to have to recraft again in 9.2? Probably, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, waist and cloak for these 2 legendaries. So definitely be looking at that. Speaking of the shards of domination, as a Brewmaster Monk that is raiding, you want to focus on the blood shards as they provide the most offensive and defensive value for our spec. Shard of Joss will give you a healing taken bonus and an overall HP boost. Both of these are really good because you're the lowest HP tank and you tend to take the most damage because your damage intake is very consistent, so getting bonus healing is always going to be good, and then extra HP is never a bad thing for a tank. Alright, Shard of Beck is simply a damage increase when you have 50% more health than your target. This is not going to be really consistent, but you need it to fill out the set bonus, so you just kind of take it. And then finally, Shard of Rev increases your leech, which is a great tertiary stat, never a bad thing to have. All 3 of these on paper are pretty underwhelming, but the blood set bonus, which is called Blood Link, is actually quite good. Basically, you pulse out shadow damage that heals you for 100% of the damage dealt for every 3 seconds. So if it overheals you, it heals an ally instead. So this is a fantastic consistent damage and healing bonus, which is going to make Brewmaster, I think, extremely powerful. And this is never going to be bad for progression. Now, since these shards the set bonuses don't work in Mythic Plus, if you are an only Mythic Plus player, you don't really care about getting the 3 set piece for raid purposes. You're only doing the raid to get the domination shards, which is probably what I'll do. then you want to look into the order in this exact order: Diz, Core, Beck, Joss, Kier, and Zed, in that order. Basically, you want to collect the best options across the board to maximize your offensive and defensive value. If you do mixed content, so you raid and Mythic Plus, go for the Blood 3 set, and then get Core and Diz as your other 2 slots. So let's talk Covenants, Soulbinds, Conduits. So from a Conduit perspective, not much has really changed. I need to update this actually, so I'm going to go do that while I'm talking about these. So from a Covenant standpoint, or Conduit standpoint, not much has changed. Walk with the Ox is still going to be by far the best option available to you, with second potency Conduit being your Covenant one, so Strike with Clarity for me. And then as a third option, there is a new option called Adaptive Armor Fragment. This basically, when you're healed by another player, you gain additional agility over 15 seconds that occurs once every 30 seconds. So those are going to be your 3 best potency slots. Your endurance conduits haven't changed. You want Harm Denial, Celestial Effervescence is going to be your second best option. With really beyond that, if you have to run a third one, I would strongly recommend it. But Evasive Stride, Grounding Breath, Fortified Ingredients, all of those are going to be kind of like your best options. And then for finesse conduits, they're all pretty weak. I just take Dizzying Tumble because I run Mythic Plus. If you have to pick one for raid, then Tumbling Technique might not be a bad idea. But if you can avoid it in raid situations, avoid all the finesse conduits and just run as many potency and endurance conduits as possible. So I'm just fixing my Kyrian Soulbind here. Apply that and then activate him for this spec. There we go. All right, now let's talk about the Covenants. So Covenants still remain largely the same. Kyrian is still the best overall in both raid and Mythic Plus, with Mythic Plus having other options of Necrolord and Night Fae being good alternatives. For raid, not really a good alternative. You want to run Kyrian as much as humanly possible. If you only run in Plus like I do, then you have options, so it's always good to have that. But if you're looking to do mixed content, you're probably just best sticking with Kyrian, which is what I'm going to do. I debated going Necrolord for a little bit for other spec purposes, but it wouldn't be a bad choice for me. But I think sticking as Kyrian is going to be the best overall option. Now let's look at the Soulbinds and the extended tree. So for Kyrian, since I have him here, Pelagos is still going to be your best option. You see, I was experimenting with Mike and Nikos, but that's going to be good for Windwalker monks more often. You can run Mike and Nikos if you want a more DPS oriented build, but if you're looking for like a mix of good offensive and defensive abilities, then Pelagos is still going to be your best option. As usual, this is the kind of the standard build that you run. You go here, and then when you go here, you're obviously going to run this at Renown 43, which you'll get next week. So that will allow you to use Adaptive Armor Fragment, and then you want to grab Better Together. So getting bonus mastery is going to be good when you're in conjunction with someone. So this actually incentivizes you to run either a melee healer in Paladin, or get a melee in your Mythic Plus groups. You run your second defensive conduit, which will be Celestial Effervescence. You can switch over if you're raid only. You can switch this over and run this path instead, and run things like Fortifying Ingredients. Condensed Animosphere is not going to be the best. 0.35% heal is not great, but you can run that. And then, of course, at the bottom, you're getting Newfound Resolve. There's a low chance your doubt will manifest for 10 seconds. Directly facing your doubt will overcome it, granting 10% agility and stamina for 15 seconds. So big bonus, and at 55 for now, and it's going to be pretty early in the process versus Mike and Nikos getting his at 57 and Clea not getting it, also getting it at 54. So all pretty much within a week of each other. If you are Night Fae, Ameni still trumps by far. Lead by Example is so powerful, and the tree going further and further down, it's just going to be excellent for you. For Night Fae, I think I said Corin was the best choice in the beginner's guide, but that is shifted over to Naya, or Nia, however you pronounce the name, as the damage component of Nia's burrs actually works on boss mobs now, making it the best choice for damage dealing for Night Fae. And then General Draven is the best for Venthyr, that hasn't changed. Still going to be the best one going forward if you're one of like the 3 Venthyr monks in the earth. Going down the soulbind trees, you still want to make the same priority choices that you make now. Try to get potency conduits as much as possible, and then looking at the best DPS traits to build towards. So here again, better together into newfound resolve is going to be, I think, your best choice overall here. Now let's look at the season 2 affix, which is Tormented. Let me open up my Mythic dungeon tools. Let's just grab Halls of Atonement real quick. So this is just a no skips route. I don't think. Is there a way to clear? Don't know if these guys are in here yet. Those are the Stoneborn. Yeah, I don't think these guys are, the Lieutenant Mobs are in here just yet. So that's a little bit of a bummer. We'll just kind of make it work. Alright, so basically the Mythic plus affix is Tormented. There'll be 4 Lieutenant Mobs found throughout every dungeon. They always drop the same anima powers, and you probably want to go ahead, unless you're at the very highest keys, you want to go ahead and just kill all 4 of them and get these anima powers as quickly as possible. They should be your first priority, unless you have to kill a boss to advance past one. They drop the same mana power, so you always want to take the following ones. You want the Stone Ward from Sagadan, the 5th Skull for DPS or Crumbling Bulwark for defensive purposes off of the Incinerator mob, Huntsman's Muzzle off Oros Coldheart, and Stygian King's Barbs off of Varuth. So those are the 4 anima powers you want to get, just kind of, or 4, potentially 5. Just kind of write those down and keep track of them, because those are basically the 4 you're always going to chase, unless they buff and tweak or nerf or whatever the case may be moving forward. Overall, I think Brewmaster looks to remain somewhat probably in the middle of the pack, as Demon Hunter, Prot Warrior, and Bear Druid are all looking extremely strong for both Raid and Mythic Plus, ahead of Brewmaster Monk. Blood Decay obviously in the mix for Raid as well. But I still think you're going to see a lot of them in high-end content, as I turn my mic up here at the end. I think with enough practice and execution, you'll find yourself with a lot of success as a Brewmaster Monk. I think the spec is in a great place now and only getting better. The only frustrations that I have are not even related to the spec. They're related to outside systems, the recrafting, domination sockets only being available in Raid, etc., etc. And that kind of impacts all specs, so it's not just a Brewmaster specific thing. Anyways, guys, that's the Intermediates guide for Brewmaster Monk for patch 9.1 of Shadowlands. Let me know if there's anything that you can think of that I missed in the comments below. Look for Windwalker and Mistweaver Monk videos to be coming soon from me. Probably not until next week as of recording. It's January 1st or July 1st now officially for me. So I'm actually headed out of town for the weekend for July 4th. So I won't be back until next week. So expect those videos to come from me next week. So until the next video, I hope you all stay safe. Remember that it's always a great day to be alive, and I will see you all in the next video.